Crash course on Canadian military, history, contributions, and current status. Canada has a rich and complex military history, with contributions dating back to pre-Confederation times. Despite being a relatively young country, Canada has played a significant role in many of the major conflicts of the 20th century, and has a proud tradition of peacekeeping and humanitarian missions around the world. In this crash course, we will explore some of the key events and contributions of Canada's military history, and share some interesting stories to excite visitors and new immigrants to Canada. A. Pre-Confederation. The early military history of Canada is closely linked to the colonial powers that occupied the country prior to Confederation. The French and British both established military forces in Canada to protect their interests and maintain control over the population. One of the most famous battles of this period was the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, fought between the French and British in Quebec City in 1759. The British victory in this battle marked a turning point in the 7 Years' War, and ultimately led to the establishment of British control over Canada. B. World War I. When the First World War broke out in 1914, Canada was still a relatively young country, having only achieved Confederation in 1867. However, Canada was quick to respond to the call to arms, and by the end of the war, more than 620,000 Canadians had served in the military, with 66,000 making the ultimate sacrifice. One of the most famous battles of the war was the Battle of Vimy Ridge, fought in France in April 1917. In this battle, the Canadian Corps successfully captured a key German position that had eluded the British and French armies for several years. The victory at Vimy Ridge is often cited as a defining moment in Canadian history, and helped to establish Canada as a respected military power on the world stage. C. World War II. When the Second World War broke out in 1939, Canada once again answered the call to arms. Over 1 million Canadians served in the military during the war, and once again, tens of thousands made the ultimate sacrifice. One of the most notable contributions of the Canadian military during this period was its role in the Battle of the Atlantic. Canadian naval vessels escorted convoys of ships across the Atlantic, protecting them from German U-boats and ensuring that vital supplies reached the United Kingdom. Canada also played a significant role in the Normandy landings, with Canadian soldiers landing on Juno Beach on D-Day and helping to secure a foothold on the continent. D. Korean War. In 1950, Canada was one of the countries that answered the call to defend South Korea against invasion by North Korea. More than 26,000 Canadians served in the Korean War, with 516 making the ultimate sacrifice. One of the most notable contributions of the Canadian military during this conflict was its role in the Battle of Kapyong. In this battle, a small force of Canadian soldiers held off a much larger Chinese force, allowing the United Nations forces to regroup and ultimately push the Chinese back. E. Peacekeeping and humanitarian missions. In addition to its contributions to major conflicts, Canada has a proud tradition of peacekeeping and humanitarian missions around the world. Since the 1950s, Canadian troops have been deployed to numerous hotspots around the world, including Cyprus, Bosnia, Haiti, and Afghanistan. One of the most famous Canadian peacekeeping missions was the United Nations Emergency Force, which was established in the aftermath of the Suez Crisis in 1956. Canadian peacekeepers played a key role in this mission, which helped to establish the UN's reputation as a mediator of international conflicts. The Canadian Armed Forces, CAF, is the military organization responsible for the defense of Canada and its interests. The CAF is composed of the Royal Canadian Navy, Canadian Army, and Royal Canadian Air Force, and is led by the Chief of the Defence Staff, CDS. The CDS is the highest-ranking military officer in the CAF and is responsible for providing strategic leadership and direction to the organization. The current CDS is General Wayne Eyre, who assumed the role on February 23, 2021. Under the CDS, the CAF is organized into several commands, each responsible for a specific area of military operations. 1. Canadian Joint Operations Command, CJOC, responsible for planning and conducting joint military operations in Canada and around the world. 2. Canadian Special Operations Forces Command, CANSOFCOM, responsible for conducting special operations missions in support of Canadian interests. 3. Royal Canadian Navy, RCN, responsible for the maritime defense of Canada and its interests, as well as conducting naval operations around the world. 4. Canadian Army, CA, responsible for land-based operations and the defense of Canadian territory, as well as supporting international operations. 5. Royal Canadian Air Force, RCAF, responsible for aerial operations and the defense of Canadian airspace, as well as supporting international operations. Each of these commands is led by a commander who reports directly to the CDS. Additionally, the CAF has several other organizations responsible for support functions such as logistics, intelligence, and communications. In terms of personnel, the CAF is composed of regular force members, reserve force members, and civilian employees. The regular force is made up of full-time personnel, while the reserve force is made up of part-time personnel who serve on a part-time basis but can be called up for full-time service in times of need. The civilian employees of the CAF provide a range of support functions, including administrative and technical support. Overall, the CAF is a modern and professional military organization with a clear chain of command and a focus on providing effective defense of Canadian interests both at home and abroad. In conclusion, Canada has a rich and diverse military history, with contributions dating back to pre-Confederation times. From the Battle of the Plains of Abraham to the Battle of Kapyong, and from the trenches of World War I to the mountains of Afghanistan, Canadian military personnel have played a vital role in defending Canada's interests and promoting peace and security around the world. Today, the Canadian Armed Forces continue to be an important part of Canada's national security and defense strategy. With a modern and well-equipped military organization and strong leadership under the Chief of the Defense Staff, the CAF is ready to respond to a wide range of challenges and threats, both at home and abroad. From providing disaster relief in Canada and around the world to participating in international peacekeeping missions, the men and women of the CAF are dedicated to serving their country and making a positive difference in the world. As Canada continues to face new and evolving threats in the 21st century, the importance of a strong and effective military organization cannot be overstated. With its rich history of service and sacrifice, the Canadian Armed Forces will undoubtedly continue to play a vital role in Canada's defense and security for many years to come. We hope this video has given you a taste of all the incredible experiences Canada has to offer. If you're ready to start planning your own adventure to Canada, please ensure to use our booking.com referral link, https://www.booking.com/index.html. 8 equals 7989335 to book your flights, hotels, car rentals, local attractions, and more. It's an easy and kind way to support this channel and make sure you get the best possible deals on your trip. Thank you. Anhub Metaverse team at Vancouver, Canada, CA.